Welcome to Kegels and Coffee. My name is Isabel and I am your host. This next episode with Madaleine Sorkin was recorded down in Waco Tanks at the Gletherland campsite. So you might hear some dogs barking in the background, but it was really nice to chill with her in my van and talk as we usually do. I always enjoy speaking to Madaleine. I can share openly, we relate well, and I learn a lot from her experiences and perspective. Madaleine and her wife live in an off-grid home near the Black Canyon in Colorado. Although she describes herself these days more as a homebody, she still pushes herself and loves to climb long, hard routes in the Rockies as well as Yosemite, where she's freed up to 513 plus on Long's Peak and El Capitan. Madaleine has also completed first free ascents as far as Kyrgyzstan, Patagonia, and Jordan. Impacted by climbing-related tragedies in her community, Madaleine founded the Climbing Grief Fund, an organization that works to evolve the conversation around grief in the climbing community and help connect individuals to mental health professionals and resources. For more information, please find the link in the show notes. I've known Madaleine since 2011, and I've always appreciated her calm energy, but also knew there was quite a drive hiding beneath that mellow vibe. She wouldn't be able to do what she does without it. Past conversations about our ambitions have helped me understand my own relationship to my passions and idea of success. For Madaleine, the drive to achieve crept up on her during her 20s. For a while, her passion for climbing led her to be a little bit less selective about who she would partner up with, as long as she could get on the route she was psyched on. Then, a pretty severe climbing accident changed her perspective. She started asking a question that she poses until today. What am I up to? A question that inquires about her intentions, goals, and reasons for doing something, whether in climbing or in other areas of her life. This has allowed Madaleine to check in with herself before getting on a long, hard route, making sure the timing, partner, and weather felt adequate. The urge to push herself continues to bring incredible moments, but as she and I discuss, there are times we both feel like we're just not doing enough. Madaleine likes to call this failure dysphoria. On days where failure dysphoria is turned up, it's almost impossible to be productive. In our conversation, we dive deep into all the lessons, tools, and ways we have both learned to be kind to ourselves, go into our bodies, and out of our minds. For Madaleine, the experience of listening to herself and doing what she needs to do might mean calling it a day at the crag and pulling out her journal. And this practice is what has helped her to build the relationship she wants to have with herself, her partner, and her work.
No, seriously, what am I doing with my life?
How did that come across? Did they hear me?
I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind.
You're messed up.
I need to just Netflix and chill.
Like, I'm gonna meditate like a badass.
It's just like this psychotic break, and then I get my period, and I'm like, oh, it was just your period again.
Am I the only one feeling this crazy? Thank you for being here today with me. I really appreciate it. And it's nice to be down here in Waco looking at the window at this beautiful landscape and sharing this moment with you in my van.
Yeah, thanks, Isabel. I'm interested to see where our conversation goes, and thanks for asking me to be part.
Why don't we start off? I'm curious a little bit about your upbringing. Just kind of like the culture that you grew up in immediately as a child, maybe expectations or, rules or just certain standards that you think might have influenced you also later in life.
Yeah. So I grew up mostly in a big suburb of Washington, D.C., and my dad is from a family that who immigrated from Ukraine, Jewish American, he grew up in Miami, and so we had a lot of connections there. And my mom's from England and grew up in London, and I spent a lot of time there as well. And I have a sister who's 2 years older, and we were close and fought tremendously throughout high school. And my family structure, I think in a lot of ways it was quite normal, as you would think of a nucleus family that spends a fair bit of time together and had dinner together in the evenings. Not particularly strict family, quite supportive, involved, engaged in what I was up to. Certainly my parents missed a number of things about me, as parents do. But I came from a really loving home and grandparents and people who appreciated being outside, but spent a lot more time in cities and a lot of like walking around cities and seeing some art and plays and being in natural spaces.
Nice. Do you feel like, because I know you as somebody who is very driven. In fact, when I first met you, actually, I felt like you were calm feeling. But I also, knowing, your accomplishments and who you were, realized behind that there's like a motor. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, because when I look back at my life, I feel like I can see that little overachiever in me kind of being like, born pretty early in life. And I'm curious, do you feel like looking back at your life that you felt strongly about your goals, whatever they might have been, academic or athletic? Or is that something that came with time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because now I certainly spend a lot more time thinking about my drive and both allowing it and finding a way that I actually want to live with it. I think it snuck up on me somewhere in my 20s, like earlier 20s. And in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense in terms of trying to sort through feelings of more apathy and depression, and really finding, with climbing in particular, finding something I was good at and really feeling that desire to make it go as far as it could go and like see where the limit was, and wanting to feel like unlimited in something. And it's a bit of a mystery. Like, I think I would say more gradual, like in the early 20s, really, as I was trying to become an adult and really differentiating more from my family structure, which I think I took from my parents a lot of dissatisfaction, actually, and notes on that. And I was like, I don't want to do that. In a few key ways. But one way that I expressed that was absolutely in climbing and being as unlimited as I could in it.
There are two ways in which I feel like achievement and I guess like goal setting and success relate to climbing. One question is your own relationship to it and your own expectation, and then the outside world reacting to your decision to take this somewhat alternative lifestyle road. So I'm curious how your family reacted.
Yeah. I mean, My family, they continued to be really supportive with, this is what you want to do. I got to go to this adventure camp when I was 15, and then I was so into the program that I got to do that I called and was like, I'm going to be on work crew. I'm just staying for the summer. And they got that there was like something up for me that was really important. And they were supportive. They didn't understand it, but they kind of wanted to. I really felt like my parents were like, can you take some photos? Can you do something? Because like I never would. I was that kind of person, and I still often am. But they wanted to understand it, and I think then I went the climbing guide route, and so that I think was helpful for them. She's doing something.
It has like a structure, a name, a title.
Professional.
Yeah, it's very professional.
And then I had this climbing accident that I almost died, and that disrupted the whole order of things when I was 24.
Right.
And I took this 50-foot fall, anchor failure, like awful situation. And that's a whole other story, but they were there and they're like, what is this? Like, what are you up to?
Wow.
And it was really the first time that I was like, I really need to ask myself that. And it was a turning point for me. And that was the same year that I freed Moonlight Buttress with my friend Kate Rutherford. Like, I came back after 2 months and like kind of did exposure therapy with myself with climbing in a way that I really wasn't aware that I was doing that, but intuitively I would like hang at anchors and cry and imagine my body falling and how it would fall. And like climbing was so important to me already. I was like, I want to be this, I want to be out on the edge. I want to be pushing. And like, I didn't really have the space to know why, but I learned from that I didn't feel like I had the space to know why. But I learned from that accident that I needed to be a lot more aware of myself on days that I was going to risk and what was going on. And so it did start a very positive awareness process for me of like, if I'm going to do this thing, I need to be checking in with myself all the time, because leading up to that accident had been a really apathetic state for myself and non-committal. And what am I don't know. I'll climb with this person and who knows. And I would just kind of climb with whoever was maybe going to climb something I wanted to climb. And it was all just very vague. And I just took a lot more ownership over my climbing and what I was up to, and started figuring out what I was up to more from there.
Yeah.
And I think I use that term, like, what am I up to, a lot. And I think I use it because I can have a lot of mixed feelings around things and have mixed messages in myself. And I kind of need that as a check-in measure so that I can become more conscious either in the moment or the day before deciding to go on a trip or not, like really like engage with myself, because I can kind of cast off and drift off into vague land.
Yeah. I love the fact that your family supported you, and despite the accident too. I mean, they were obviously asking some questions, but it seems like that the love and support was there, and that the topic of success and achievement and, pushing for different reasons was a very personal one. And it seems also from what you just said that has really allowed you to grow and become more aware and cast light on, why am I doing this? Does this feel right? Is this partner, good for the climb that I want to do? And just have a little bit more self-awareness in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And on the family theme, because I think what I've found with having a relationship with my family is that the family theme is always there to interact with. And it's always coming up in my life in a kind of circling way. And I think actually for both my sister and I, although we did very different things with our lives and have continued to do sort of different things anyway, tangent. I think both for my sister and I, we kind of looked at my parents and we're like, we feel a lot of like dissatisfaction and skirting of yourself there, like in the room. And so we went for a much more driven path. And I think that stuff's really interesting because I do feel quite different than from, let's say, my father, because I'm so like, I'm getting this done and this is what I'm doing. What are you doing, Dad? Whatever. You know, I'm like, ugh, okay. And but in the same regard, like there's a lot of similarity in the content that I think actually I'm still engaging with, that my parents are engaging with. They just chose a different way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I think for me and my family, the dynamic was more of like academic achievement was sort of an expectation too. And I think, you know, especially my dad, he's very German. So I think that the expectation there was just a little higher than what I ended up doing in his eyes. So for me, the pressure of doing well, the pressure I put on myself, in addition to sometimes feeling like in the outside world, I'm not really doing anything that has like as much value. They sort of like both play a role for me. And I would say that
sounds like a proper double bind.
Yes. Icing on the cake, Madaleine, just like slap it on there. Just like another layer of I'm not enough. And everybody else has their shit figured out but me. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you the other day in Just Van about the dissatisfaction or the sensation of not being enough or the sensation of, you know, not having succeeded. And it was just so interesting to me because here I am talking to you, somebody that I you know, admire, not just as a climber, but a person. And, you know, you're telling me, oh, I can relate to that. It's strange because, again, it's like such a personal view of our own selves. Like somebody can come to me and say, Isabel, you've, you know, performed in all these places and you've done all these things and traveled to these places. And still I can feel like I haven't done enough with my life, or it's not something that is being acknowledged. So I'm curious your experience around that.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is huge around it. I think that it's helpful for me to know and name that like this is just pervasive, and maybe it's just pervasive in certain cultures that we're a part of. I think there's certainly examples of other cultures that don't have this never enough thing, but I can very much relate to really just looking for those moments where like I don't have to feel that, you know, and or what I'm looking for are those great moments that I don't have to feel that, not like the ones that I'm just checking out of. So that is great. But also I think knowing that like this is just a thing that is there on some sort of like hum like the fridge in my life. And my wife Hannah and I have started calling it failure dysphoria. And the level of volume of it depends on a day. And sometimes like it just is so out of whack with, it just has nothing to do with almost anything, but it's just really, really high. Maybe because for me, I saw like a 18-year-old boy who's super strong and is like climbing V12, and I'm like, it triggers something for me of like what I'm not, and like that is its own path. Like I can have my content around that and like how I kind of grew up in my body and my comfort with it and all of that stuff, and I think that that's really important. Like that's my content, but like there's like another layer behind that that's like we're getting the message somehow about striving, and like it's so ingrained in us, right? Our evolution or like ambition has gotten us where we got to, but then sometimes that ambition gets like really icky, that like you don't even want to like be in your own skin.
I can relate to that so very much. Somebody said to me in Germany, I hope I get this right, ambition is passion with a V8 engine. and I don't know. I kind of relate to that because there is that passion, the fire for you clearly in your 20s, the climbing.
But what's the V8 engine doing? Is it like always running?
It's just like ramping, like it's like the motor behind the passion. It's just
starving.
Like
feed me with more oil.
Flooring. The V8 engine is like what
the
drives
driving.
it, and yeah, the passion for you clearly. The climbing for me, it was climbing, but the dance also obviously for me to start the company and the ambition is something that is like the next step further, which also like translates into actually, doing something about it and taking the steps. And, it takes discipline to train hard or to create choreography or to create your own website or to reach out to sponsors. I mean, there's a reason that's hard, and not everybody does it because it's challenging. So a certain amount of that, like you said, is really good. And then, like you said, sometimes that volume of the, say it one more time.
Failure, dysphoria.
Yes, is so high that it's almost like I can't do anything. Like I feel like it's almost how do you say
hampering.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like it's so loud that it's not the humming. It's almost just like I don't even know what to focus on right now because it feels so like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's when we get lost and we have to find our way with how we are practicing with ourselves. So that's certainly for me, there's like body practices when I'm just really in my brain, right? And maybe I feel off in my body, and that usually feels unsettling for me, to not have as much control. But let's say I'm feeling off and failure dysphoria is high. It's a hard day.
That is a hard day. That is a hard day. And yeah, I was actually about to ask you that. I love that you went there, like tools. I know there are a lot of different tools for this. I have my own, but I'm curious. You said going into your body, so...
I honestly have to keep it so freaking simple for myself because, my brain gets really confusing on this subject and like tries to find all the ways that'll be like the best way to help me in this moment. And so anything I can do I still just struggle with this. Anything I can do to actually have like a body-centered practice, whether that's like just breathing and settling and maybe touching the thing that's like really bothering me, like a light touch and a lot of self-compassion. And it really depends for me still, like whether I can bring myself back from kind of less good coping strategies, which would be like isolating or overeating for me. And like I think those have had a time and place for me, and they're still friends if I want to hang out with them. But I think there's so many coping strategies, calling a friend or having someone sit with you. But I think for me, it starts with returning to my body in some way and broadening my awareness from whatever that thing is that I'm afraid of and fixating on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that very much. And I agree with you. Sometimes I feel like I have sort of a, one tool that really works the best, but then kind of like what you're saying, I realize it's not the same thing every time. But I do agree with you. The common thread for me as well is coming into my body. Because I feel like I can start distracting myself and doing emails or working on podcasting or whatever, but really I'm not present for it because I'm not in a good headspace for it. So it's not enjoyable nor productive. And oftentimes when I then finally sit and breathe and allow myself to actually feel the thing, what you said, whatever that is, and often in my chest, that's when it kind of starts losing that grip on me.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, like less is more, like slowing down, waiting before you take the next step, seeing maybe like what actually, like if you can touch into that intuition. Like the other day for me, it was just finding a gym in El Paso and plugging myself into my headphones, doing a little bit of yoga, and taking a really long hot shower without limit. And that's what I needed that day.
That sounds great.
You know, I just needed to just go somewhere else, out of my van, out of the whole thing, completely isolated in this other place, and just, move a little bit and take a long hot shower. And it was like, I came out of that gym feeling like a new person.
That's so cool. It's really cool to hear, actually. That's a great one. I mean, remove yourself from a given environment. I mean, I find it a hard question. As I mean, if I can like get myself out the door, like always going on a walk is great for me. Like it's simple and it's more engaging than me sitting and breathing, honestly. That often does help me kind of be able to maybe sit and breathe or after. I love the going to a gym and like kind of things are all there for you to just plug into.
Yeah,
you don't have to
there.
like tap into your drive that you're kind of struggling with. My drive, it's such a pain in the butt. Like,
yeah, it's so nice. It's just like a change of scenery. I also find sometimes this is something I've gotten better at with age, just knowing when to say no. Like we were out bouldering the other day and it was kind of cold and windy and I just wasn't feeling it and I was not psyched, and I just, halfway through the day I was like, no, I'm just going to chill and eat and put on my puffy and watch, and it was fine. I think if I'd continued to climb, I wouldn't have felt good in my body. So it's like really, making the choice of letting go also sometimes, like just being like, that's all right. I don't need to always be on top of my game.
Yeah, that resonates. I mean, I think me just learning to like make those choices for what's my next right thing and following through with what the information is that I get back. So if it's my next right thing is really just to put my bag away and hang out and maybe have my journal out, and like the experience of listening to myself and doing that is really helpful for me in building like the relationship I want to have with myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting too to think about like the term success, You were saying in some cultures the not enough syndrome is stronger, and then I feel like in the American culture, very much is celebrated to be doing a lot, and also there's like the income and the status and titles. There's a strong pull to drive here in the United States, which is also something I love about this country, because people go for shit and they actually start a company and they try really hard and they're adventurous and innovative, and it can be detrimental to somebody like me that's like as type A German as they come, completely ambitious, and then it's almost like sparking me even more to that like unhealthy level.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then you add the whole, well, I'm not doing something conventional. I'm not, a lawyer or a teacher or a doctor, and so it's like you almost feel like, or I almost feel like I have to prove it more that I'm doing something worthy. It's like, how do you measure success? And that has definitely been something I've thought about a lot over the years. Like, how do you measure success? And I feel like it is, in the end, something very personal, but it can still feel like you're sort of trying to satisfy this other animal that's like all around you or something.
I mean, that really does. It seems like one of the demons of freelance or like independent kind of it's a potential demon, right? Because you are defining that more often than you would be if you're like within some structure of I guess we'll just go with like a 9-to-5 job somewhere, right? And so you show up and you're in this group that you guys are deciding how you're all doing as a team. But the other side of it is that side of entering your professionalism, like, and staying in it. Like, you may be in a position to get more resilient because you're just like, you're going to learn like your standards and such. And so you could be an awful boss for a while, but you might become a better boss for yourself because you're like, I know that I'm more productive when I have a nap between 12 and 1, or when I'm feeling this way that I have an intervention with myself. Whereas if you're in an external structure, you just might not be able to listen to that as well. And so I think it's in a way we're also sniffing around the like looking for as though there's some environment that's like the better environment. And just how hard it is to like have enough external support, but not too much, and have like, know yourself enough internally that like, what you need externally to be able to make it all work. And I mean, kudos to lots of people who do their drive, in a healthy way. I think struggling with it is potentially a sign of health, and I think that that's probably worth us talking about too, because it doesn't. You can find a formula for a period of time, and then you do change, and so it wasn't like it was just all bad, whatever we were both doing in our early 30s, but like we are different now, and we have different awareness, we have different priorities, and like that's what I kind of mean when I say what am I up to. And I think lately I've been in this what am I up to, and like I really want to know what I have, because it's so practiced for me to not really acknowledge and allow the impact of what I have, and instead like focus on what I don't have and like what's not enough. And then I'm like, I'm not connecting with my wife as well as I could be. I'm not like appreciating shifts that I have made that have been like really important for me in listening to like who I am as a whole person more now. And like, I've been writing a lot more, and that's been great for me. And I have to engage with my drive there now because I care about it, which is great. And it's great to see myself broadening. But I'm showing up there too,
Wherever you go, there you are. I feel that way with my podcast. I mean, I'm just getting started, and I can already see that little thing sneaking itself in there.
Does it have a name, or does it look like anything in particular?
It's just like this thing in the back. It's just like this voice, like you said, and it becomes really negative. It's like so interesting. Like, you're taking too long to edit this piece, and you're just terrible podcaster. Why are you even doing this? Like, what is even the purpose? And at the same time, like you said, with the writing, I do enjoy it, but why does this voice have to always show up? But it's like you said, I'm the one doing it, right? So I'm going to care enough about it where that voice has potential of like sneaking in there.
And I just think the less we can think there's anything wrong with us in this, because this is our evolution. Like, this is how we got places. This is how, and we are really trying to figure out what to do with these parts of ourselves. And like the world is, because we're screwing up this world so much. And we're also doing a lot of amazing things, which are often harder to see, but like, it's quite a critical time to be a human here. And if you're not like struggling with this mix of our ambition and the impacts of our ambition on our environment and our well-being, then we're not really being that conscious about what the time is right now.
I really appreciated what you had to say about the awareness that we've gained through growing older, and I really appreciate that part of getting older, just that connection with my body and on a day-to-day basis, and like the awareness that you create, like it's not going to all go away, but you're like, oh, there's that voice, and I'm at least aware of that.
Yeah. I think sometimes I can get in the trap of like, oh, it's just the same, and like here I am having to remember the same thing, and why am I so forgetful, and that being part of our nature too. But I think that that's a really unfortunate way to see it, or it's at least unhelpful, versus like this thing that we do and being human that's like not the like comfortable thing, that's more of us like being in like multiple minds about something, or really feeling the loss of something. I don't know why we get to do this as humans, but like it is this like this thing that is in front of us to like practice all the time. And if you're not doing it, like then you really are like missing out on most of your life. Like there's great, wonderful moments throughout life, and some of us get more of those probably than, I'm sure some of us get more of those than others. But like there are people who are like, this too is actually an okay or good moment. This one that I'm feeling this like anxiety in, or this one that I'm feeling some sort of pain in regard. They're like, this is part of it. And I think that knowing that that's a possibility for yourself, and then like having those experiences where like, I mean, with climbing, it's so funny because like we like hurt our fingers so much, right? Or just like that little thing, like going bouldering right now, everyone's just like screaming with their fingers, and like you're engaging with your pain like so profoundly, I think, on something like this.
True.
And it's like that practice is something that like you are doing. And so like obviously it's very important to you. And so I think that's the piece, like, in relationships really important to me, and being in relationship now with a life partner where it's like, this is coming up and I really don't want to lean into this. And then like, but if I don't lean into this like uncomfortable thing that's happening, like we're actually not in relationship in this. Like I have to like do this here too. And that actually gives me honestly like back a lot more. If it's a good relationship, whatever, if you're like on the same page with what you're up to in relationship, I think there just aren't as many terms and conditions then to your life. And I think those people that I see farther down the road to me who are really helpful are the ones who like, they're not very rigid about how like the goodness of their life like relies on some sort of external set of things happening and going well for them. And when I really like feel and see people like that, like they give me a lot of hope in ways that a kid can give me hope in other, I mean, a kid can give me hope in other ways, but they're really the people who turn towards what's happening in their life, the whatever, good and bad of it. I really think you can only do that if you've been practicing.
Yeah, leaning into the discomfort is definitely an art, and it is something that we never stop learning and we never stop experiencing, I think, for our entire life. And it's actually interesting that you bring up your relationship with Hannah, because I feel the same way with recent interactions with my husband. Uncomfortable conversations, bringing up things that are hard to bring up, but then realizing this is actually the only way really through it, in a way that is going to help us, maintain a honest and genuine relationship.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool thing to think that you could be, or like, cool thing to think about being able to expand your comfort. And I mean, I think it's certainly a theme for me. I'm much more like attachment avoidant individual who like wants things to be okay and like wants to like facilitate that in the room and what have you. So like I think it's a lot for me to like walk that talk, and it my life is a lot better when I like show up however I am. And I usually have to show up with a lot of resistance, like a tremendous amount of resistance at first, and like name it and like be gentle with it, and also like maybe embody it. And like it's no easy task. I think the simple but not easy is just a continual thread for me with that kind of work.
Yep. One of the reasons I started this podcast is because I felt inspired to share stories so that people can relate possibly, and also remember they're not alone. One of the things that happens when I am in that sort of vicious cycle of, self-doubt and not enough or whatever it is, like just having one of those days where the volume is high, that it's easy to feel like everybody else has it figured out for some reason.
There's some reason that my brain's gonna tell me some version of like what you're telling yourself. Like other people don't like make it this much worse for themselves. You know, like other people are able to like do their management strategy or like say they're falling on their face quicker and like ask for support, name what's happening more in the moment. Like other people can do it way better than I can. And what if that's like the thank you ambition again, because it's really just, it's trying to help you get to where you want to go. But it's also like, obviously like helping you self-destruct in that moment too. So it's like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, we're thinking about our brain thinking, and that's a really fun thing to do. But like, it's like our brains, it's so cool that we can think about what our brains are doing. And like, there's like, really, there's nothing, when you can see that you're doing that, like, then it's just like, are you able to change the direction of your ship? Because like your thinking brain is not necessarily what's in charge there, but are you going to let it be in charge, or do you have is something going to help you change that direction? And maybe it won't at first, but I think just that whole, like, it has your best interest in its mind. It's just like, it sure is messing you up in the moment.
I like to remind myself that I'm probably not the only one that is feeling this way. For some reason, I find comfort in that. I was listening to this meditation the other day, and she just walked you through this, like, body scan and kind of paying attention to what is going on in your heart and in your mind, and then just reminding you there are probably thousands, if not millions or billions of people that are experiencing something similar, and that's just part of the human experience. I do believe that there are people that just have a, generally speaking, more positive disposition, but I certainly don't think I'm alone in it. And that's one of the reasons I was excited for the podcast, is thinking, well, what, maybe one person listens to one episode and goes, wow, cool, I learned something, or it's just nice to know that these people understand what I'm going through and I can relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the important features of self-compassion is like knowing that other people are suffering in that same way, or other people suffer with that as well. And I can't remember the other ones very well.
Yeah.
So we'll just go with that one. But it's a very important part of self-compassion, being able to actually like move outside yourself, which seems counterintuitive because you're like, I'm trying to do compassion on myself. But like to do that, like we kind of have to get out of that narrowness of our own experience actually and be like, I am just locked in this one thing, and like that is a way to actually broaden. Be like, oh, you have a lot of company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's that is the hard thing with how we do live. Like it is easy, hard, whatever. It is. Isolation is a part of how we live, and so like. You really do have to kind of work to remember your connection.
Yeah. Self-compassion. That seems to be a thing for me right now. Like a theme, self-love, self-compassion. I mean, always has, but I feel like it's really coming to the surface.
Are there parts of it that you've become more aware of lately? Of like how they like...
Yeah, I think through therapy, I started tapping a little bit more into this whole concept of inner child and sort of learning to self-soothe. That's part of my toolkit now.
Yeah. I love that. I love the inner child self-soothe.
It's like, hey, I got you. You're with me now. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, I find it easier to work with my inner child than work with just like myself as myself, like really see like the part that got hurt along the way or that's still angry about something and like sit with them.
Yeah, I definitely feel like some of my unwinding and undoing is looking to, what I grew up with thinking was important and values and expectations. And it's really empowering to learn that I get to create my own set of rules. Like, this is a new world. This is my world. And I can take, bits of pieces that I've learned along the way, including from my family. And I also get to say, no, this doesn't work for me. And it's a really interesting new sort of newish discovery for me, and I'm diving into that for sure. And
that's really cool.
Thanks.
I mean, I think that's such a cool thing about being alive right now, right? Like, I think being in like not a, I guess a conventional relationship in terms of like I'm not in like a hetero relationship, so I don't have I didn't inherit as many of the conventions perhaps. So that was an opportunity for me to see that like I can make this up however I want to. But I think so many of us are doing that when you like cast off it all independently. Like we have like this poly structure of the way people do stuff, and you are like picking and choosing. So I think it can lead to like a lot of fulfillment. It can lead to a lot of like false ideals. It can lead to all kinds of things. You're like, but I think it's a very special thing about being alive right now in terms of that's a lot of freedom that we do have. Even like people a generation, like our parents really didn't have that.
It is really a luxury.
An uncomfortable luxury.
Yes, I know that's a very uncomfortable luxury. I was about to say, and it's not an easy one either, but what a luxury.
pass the butter.
Oh my God.
And slather that on some, like, I don't know, uncomfortable over-toasted bread.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I said that kind of unconsciously, like, drawing a thread, but it made me think of my British grandma when I told her that I was gay. And it was like a big deal for me, right? I was like, Grandma, I have something to tell you, kind of thing. And we were at the table and she literally like just nodded and was like, pass the butter. Like, like she just, I mean, it's like
That's awesome.
This whole journey, like this personal journey that so many of our generation are on, like it really is a new thing, like that was so private, like that kind of your interior life. And so, there were people that were writing that like Virginia Woolf or something, like who were so ahead of their time and like were freaking amazing, and to be writing about the experience, the internal experience, and also all kinds of things. But like that just wasn't a norm, like at all, to be like, what am I trying to become?
Right.
Like, or like what, not even what am I? Who am I? And so I think that there's a lot of hope in it. Obviously, there's a lot of potential navel gazing, and it's like such a fine line, and we are messily working our way, I think, in this way that we get to live now.
Yeah, and I feel like we are in a very interesting time. Like what you were saying, there's a lot going on environmentally, politically, socially, and in the entire world, everywhere. So it's like really intense, and I have hope that human consciousness is rising and going back to the self-compassion and the self-love, like really doing that internal work to then be able to show up in the world with that awareness, I think is actually the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, it's deeply impactful for the people around you and yourself. So I think there's nothing to replace that. Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to see what's going to happen.
I know.
That's why there's like all the apocalypse films. Everyone's like trying to,
Yeah.
we want to be there.
Yeah, I know.
Instead of just like, I think it's not going well, or, oh no, it's definitely going well. We've got this great technological fix and people are going to say yes to it. And
Oh man. But I wanted to say, I am proud of you for doing the work, and I always love relating to you about these kind of topics, and I appreciate so much you sharing.
Yeah, you too. And I think absolutely you too. And thank you for like the way that you appreciate me. It means a lot. And I think that's a piece that I'm glad you're doing this podcast, because it's a piece that's missing. And like why I started the Climbing Grief Fund, for example, is like we just need some support in doing our work, and we don't necessarily need to be told how to do it, but we need to know that there are ways, and like be given like possibly some tools or mental health support, or just to freaking like thank you for doing your work. And it matters, because like it matters that you are becoming more conscious. Like it helps me. And so and beyond that selfishness, like just like other people around you that are saying that's what you're supposed to do in this life, and that's as best as we've got it figured out. So just please like just do your work.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And we'll throw a link to your organization in the podcast description as well, so people can look into it more.
Great.
Do you want to do just a quick intro about it, just to leave listeners with that information?
Right, so that people know there's a program at the American Alpine Club called the Climbing Grief Fund, and we have a mental health directory with a number of therapists who work with people in the mountain sport community all over the country. And really, I started it specifically for resources related to grief and loss in climbing, but it's kind of grown beyond that. And there's a number of different specialties that those therapists have. And then also we have a grant program, these $600 grants for individuals who need some financial support to get mental health support. And those are for people who have been directly impacted by some sort of mountain sport loss or trauma. You don't need to be a climber. It's a really straightforward application. So certainly reach out to us if you are just struggling to find mental health resources really for anything.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And also thank you so much for that information. That's really awesome. And and thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Also, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a pain in the ass to do work for, but I'm stuck with me.
The community appreciates it, and I appreciate you so much. And thanks again so much for being here with me today.
Thanks, Isabel. This was fun.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And please feel free to send questions, comments, and topics you would like to hear about to isabel@kegelsandcoffee.com. That is ISABEL at kegelsandcoffee.com, or you can find me on Instagram under Kegels and Coffee. Take good care, stay tuned, and remember, when in doubt, drink coffee or do Kegels.